The unlikely disguise. Elon Musk, the visionary billionaire behind Tesla and SpaceX, had grown increasingly introspective over the years. He often mused about the human condition, how appearances influenced interactions, and the biases that pervaded society. Sitting in his sprawling Los Angeles mansion, he conceived a bold experiment. For one day, he would cast aside his identity and live as a man without a name, without wealth, without status. The goal was simple but profound: to observe how the world treated someone society deemed invisible. The idea was electrifying. He had always been curious about human behavior, often applying his analytical mind to societal challenges. What better way to understand humanity's true nature than to walk among them unnoticed? The plan was meticulously devised. Elon instructed his assistant to assemble a disguise that would render him unrecognizable. A tattered hoodie, faded jeans with patched knees, a synthetic beard, and a well-worn beanie. His shoes, deliberately scuffed and mismatched, completed the transformation. Looking into the mirror, he was startled by his own reflection. Gone was the polished entrepreneur, replaced by a man who looked as if he'd weathered countless storms. Even his posture changed. His usual confident stride gave way to a subtle slouch, as if burdened by unseen struggles. The transformation was perfect. Elon chose a destination for his experiment: a bustling café nestled in a modest downtown neighborhood. Brew Haven, though unassuming, was renowned for its artisanal coffee and inviting atmosphere. It was the perfect stage for his social experiment. Armed with a crumpled wad of cash and a notebook to jot down his observations, he set out, his heart pounding with anticipation. The sun had barely risen when he arrived at the cafe. He stood across the street, observing the early morning rush. Professionals in tailored suits hurried in and out, clutching steaming cups of coffee. College students with laptops in tow trickled in, seeking solace in caffeine before tackling their coursework. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, and yet it felt detached, each person engrossed in their own world. As he crossed the street, a subtle tension gripped him. Would his disguise hold? Would someone recognize him? But as he approached the cafe door, a security guard stationed outside glanced at him with thinly veiled suspicion. The man was imposing, with a muscular frame and a no-nonsense demeanor. His name tag read Rick. "Hey, you can't just loiter around here," Rick barked, stepping into Elon's path. His voice was gruff, his gaze unyielding. "I'm not loitering," Elon replied evenly. "I just want a cup of coffee." Rick scrutinized him, his eyes narrowing. "You got money for that?" Elon reached into his jacket pocket and produced the crumpled bills. "Enough for a cappuccino," he said, his voice calm but firm. Rick hesitated, clearly wrestling with his own assumptions. Finally, he stepped aside, muttering something under his breath. Elon nodded in acknowledgement and pushed open the glass door, the smell of freshly brewed coffee greeting him like an old friend. Inside, the cafe was a symphony of activity. Baristas called out orders, the espresso machine hissed, and the murmur of conversation filled the air. Yet, as Elon stepped in, a hush seemed to follow him. He felt the weight of a few curious stares, but he ignored them, focusing instead on the counter. The line was short, and he soon found himself face to face with two baristas. Ethan, a young man with a warm smile and an easy demeanor, greeted him cheerfully. "Good morning. What can I get for you?" Before Elon could answer, the other barista, Cindy, let out an audible sigh. Her expression was a cocktail of boredom and disdain. She muttered under her breath, but loud enough for Elon to hear, "Great. Another one." Elon's eyes flicked to her briefly, but he chose to remain composed. "A cappuccino, please," he said, addressing Ethan. Ethan nodded enthusiastically and began preparing the order. Cindy, meanwhile, leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone. Her disinterest was palpable, a stark contrast to Ethan's attentive service. Elon couldn't help but notice the dichotomy between them. As Ethan handed over the steaming cup, he said, "Here you go, sir." Enjoy." His smile was genuine, his tone untainted by judgment. "Thank you," Elon replied, his voice tinged with gratitude. He found a seat by the window and settled in, his notebook discreetly placed on the table. From his vantage point, he could observe the ebb and flow of activity within the café. Elon sipped his cappuccino slowly, the rich flavor a small comfort amid the subtle hostility he felt. Cindy's attitude gnawed at him, a reminder of how society often dismissed those who didn't fit a certain mold. But Ethan's kindness offered a glimmer of hope, proof that decency still thrived, even in unexpected places. As the morning wore on, Elon jotted down his observations. He noted the interactions between the staff and customers, the unspoken hierarchies that shaped every exchange. The cafe became a microcosm of society, revealing its prejudices and its virtues in equal measure. By the time he finished his coffee, Elon was more convinced than ever of the importance of his experiment. He stood up, his resolve strengthening. This was only the beginning. What lay ahead would not only test those around him, but also himself. With a quiet determination, he approached the counter once more, ready to take the next step in his journey of discovery. The Cafe Chronicles begin. The cafe was bustling with the typical mid-morning crowd, an eclectic mix of patrons who sought solace in their cups of coffee or the fleeting company of strangers. Elon, still in his homeless disguise, sat by the window, a vantage point that allowed him to observe the ebb and flow of human behavior. He had already experienced the sharp contrast in attitudes from Ethan, the kind-hearted barista, and Cindy, the disinterested and impatient one. As he nursed his cappuccino, he prepared to delve deeper into his experiment, determined to let the day unfold in its own unpredictable way. The light streaming through the large windows illuminated the cafe, casting warm golden hues on the wooden tables and chairs. Elon reached into his notebook and began sketching rough outlines of his observations. His mind, wired for systems thinking, couldn't help but map out patterns. He noted how Ethan's warmth seemed to disarm even the grumpiest customers, while Cindy's sharp tongue left a trail of frustrated patrons in her wake. Just as Elon was deep in thought, a middle-aged man entered the cafe. His rumpled suit and weary expression suggested he was a professional who had seen better days. The man hesitated at the counter, studying the menu as though he were weighing a decision far heavier than his morning drink order. Cindy, predictably, was the first to respond. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone laced with impatience. The man fumbled with his words. Can you tell me what's in the caramel macchiato?" Cindy rolled her eyes. "It's coffee, milk, and caramel syrup. What else do you need to know?" Elon winced at her tone, his eyes shifting to Ethan, who was restocking supplies nearby. Before the situation could escalate, Ethan stepped in with a disarming smile. "It's a great choice, sir," he said. "We make ours with a double shot of espresso and freshly steamed milk. If you'd like, I can adjust the sweetness or recommend something else you might enjoy." The man's tense shoulders relaxed, and he nodded gratefully. "That sounds perfect. Thank you." Elon couldn't help but marvel at Ethan's ability to navigate the interaction. The young barista possessed an emotional intelligence that went beyond mere professionalism. It was an innate kindness that shone through in every word and gesture. Elon scribbled a note in his notebook. Empathy as a transformative force. As the morning turned to noon, Elon's experiment took an unexpected twist. A group of teenagers entered the cafe, their energy filling the space with lively chatter. They were dressed in casual clothes, their backpacks slung carelessly over their shoulders. One of them, a boy with a shock of dyed blue hair, approached the counter. "Hey," he said, his voice loud enough to catch the attention of everyone nearby. "Can I get 5 large iced coffees? Oh, and do you do discounts for students?" Cindy didn't even look up. "No discounts," she said flatly, continuing to type on her phone. The boy frowned. Okay. Can you at least make sure they're extra cold? Last time I came, the ice was practically melted." Cindy shot him a glare. "Look, kid, it's coffee, not a science project. You get what you get. Ethan, who had been working in the back, emerged just in time to hear the exchange. Without missing a beat, he stepped in. "I'll take care of this," he said to Cindy, who shrugged and returned to her phone. "Don't worry about it," Ethan told the boy. "I'll make sure they're perfect. Extra ice, right?" "Yeah, thanks, man," the boy said, his irritation replaced by gratitude. Elon watched the interaction with interest. The dynamic between the two baristas was becoming increasingly clear. Cindy's dismissiveness alienated customers, while Ethan's genuine care built bridges. It was a microcosm of the power of human connection, a lesson Elon suspected many overlooked in their pursuit of efficiency and profit. As the day wore on, Elon decided to test the cafe patrons themselves. He got up from his seat and shuffled toward the condiment station, where a woman in her 30s was stirring sugar into her latte. She was dressed in a smart blazer, her polished appearance suggesting she worked in a corporate setting. "Excuse me," Elon said, his voice tinged with hesitation. "Could you spare a napkin? I think I spilled some coffee." The woman glanced at him briefly, her expression unreadable. For a moment, Elon thought she might ignore him altogether. Then, with a faint smile, she handed him a napkin. "Here you go," she said before returning to her drink. "Thank you," Elon replied, his gratitude genuine. The interaction was brief but revealing. Some people, it seemed, could look past appearances and offer a small act of kindness without hesitation. Not everyone, however, reacted with the same generosity. When Elon attempted to ask another patron, a sharply dressed man engrossed in his laptop, for a pen, he was met with a curt dismissal. "Sorry, I'm busy," the man said without looking up. Elon returned to his seat, jotting down his thoughts. The experiment was uncovering a spectrum of behaviors, from kindness to indifference to outright hostility. He found himself reflecting on his own privilege, wondering how often he had been blind to the struggles of others simply because he hadn't needed to notice them. By late afternoon, the cafe began to quiet down. Elon observed Cindy texting furiously on her phone while Ethan wiped down tables. The young barista seemed tireless, his energy unflagging even after hours of work. Elon decided it was time to approach him. "Hey," Elon said, his voice breaking the relative silence. Ethan looked up, startled. "Oh hey, do you need something?" "I just wanted to say, you're really good at what you do," Elon said. "It's not just about making coffee. You make people feel seen." Ethan blinked, clearly taken aback. "Oh, thank you. That means a lot." Elon hesitated for a moment before continuing. "You ever think about doing something more? Something bigger?" Ethan laughed softly, scratching the back of his head. "Sure, all the time. But you know, life doesn't always go the way you plan. For now, this job pays the bills." Elon nodded, his mind racing with ideas. He had come to the cafe to observe, but he was beginning to see an opportunity to make a difference. Ethan was more than a barista. He was a reminder of the potential that lay dormant in so many, waiting for a chance to be realized. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the cafe floor, Elon knew his experiment was far from over. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to test the boundaries of kindness, resilience, and human connection. For now, he would let the lessons of the day simmer, preparing for the next chapter in his extraordinary social experiment. Unexpected connections. As the sun set on his first day at Brewhaven, Elon Musk returned to his temporary lodgings, a modest motel on the outskirts of town. The disguise he had adopted for his experiment had held up well, but more than that, the day had been a revelation. He couldn't stop thinking about the stark contrasts he'd witnessed. Ethan's kindness versus Cindy's indifference, the varying reactions from patrons, and the subtle ways appearances influenced human interaction. Sitting on the edge of the creaky motel bed, Elon scribbled furiously in his notebook. He wasn't just documenting his observations, he was processing the emotions stirred by the day. Despite his success and intelligence, this experiment was teaching him lessons no boardroom could provide. His thoughts kept circling back to Ethan, the young barista who had shown a level of humanity that transcended his position behind the counter. Elon decided his next step. He would not only deepen his interactions with the staff at Brewhaven, but also observe the broader community that frequented the café. The next morning, he woke early, donned his disguise, and returned to the familiar glass doors of Brewhaven. The café was quieter than the previous day, the morning rush yet to begin. Ethan was at the counter, his cheerful demeanor as radiant as ever. Cindy, predictably, was leaning against the back wall, scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by its glow. Elon ordered another cappuccino from Ethan, who greeted him warmly. "Back again?" Ethan asked, his smile genuine. "Yeah," Elon replied. "Something about this place feels interesting." Ethan chuckled. "Interesting? That's a new one. Most people just come for the coffee. Sometimes you find more than you're looking for," Elon said cryptically before retreating to his usual spot by the window. As the cafe began to fill with the morning crowd, Elon watched closely. His notebook lay open, though he was careful not to draw attention to it. He noticed a young mother juggling a crying toddler and a cup of coffee, her face etched with exhaustion. Before she could spill her drink, Ethan appeared with a small plate of cookies, offering it to the child with a warm smile. The toddler quieted, and the mother's face lit up with gratitude. Not long after, an elderly man with a cane entered the cafe. He moved slowly, his steps deliberate. Cindy, engrossed in her phone, barely noticed him as he approached the counter. Before the man could speak, Ethan stepped in once again, his voice kind and patient. "Good morning, sir. What can I get for you?" The man smiled weakly. "Just a plain black coffee, please." "Coming right up," Ethan said, his tone as enthusiastic as if the man had ordered the most elaborate drink on the menu. Elon watched these moments unfold with a growing sense of admiration for Ethan. The young barista's ability to make everyone feel valued was nothing short of extraordinary. It wasn't just good customer service. It was a testament to his character. Elon decided to test the waters further. As the cafe emptied out after the morning rush, he approached Ethan, who was wiping down the counter. "Do you ever get tired of this?" Elon asked, gesturing to the cafe. Ethan paused, considering the question. "Honestly, sometimes. It's not the easiest job, but I try to focus on the good parts, like meeting new people and making someone's day a little better." Elon nodded. "You ever think about doing something bigger? Following a different dream?" Ethan's smile faltered slightly. "I thought about it. I actually studied automotive engineering in college, but life, well, it didn't go as planned. This job helps pay the bills, and I'm grateful for it." Elon's mind raced. Automotive engineering. Ethan's talent and potential were clear, but he was stuck in a role that didn't reflect his capabilities. Elon decided to dig deeper, but knew he had to tread carefully. "Why didn't you pursue engineering?" he asked, keeping his tone casual. Ethan shrugged, his expression bittersweet. "Family came first. My dad had a stroke a few years ago, and I had to step up to help out. Taking care of him, supporting my mom. It didn't leave much room for chasing dreams." Elon felt a pang of empathy. Despite his immense success, he knew the weight of responsibility and sacrifice. He saw a younger version of himself in Ethan, a dreamer constrained by circumstances, but brimming with untapped potential. Before Elon could respond, a commotion at the door drew their attention. A man in a worn leather jacket stumbled into the cafe, his movements erratic. His unkempt appearance and the faint smell of alcohol made a few patrons shift uncomfortably in their seats. Rick, the security guard, was immediately on alert. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" Rick asked, his tone firm but not unkind. The man waved him off, mumbling something incoherent. He approached the counter, where Cindy stood frozen, her eyes wide with discomfort. Ethan stepped forward instinctively, his voice calm and steady. "Hi there. Can I get you something to drink?" The man looked at him, his eyes glassy. "Coffee," he muttered. "Black." Ethan nodded and began preparing the drink. Cindy, meanwhile, whispered to Rick, "Why are we even serving him? He doesn't belong here." Elon watched the scene unfold, his chest tightening. This was a moment of truth, not just for Ethan, but for everyone in the cafe. When Ethan handed the man his coffee, he added a muffin to the plate, his expression empathetic. "Here you go," Ethan said softly. "On the house." The man stared at him, surprised. For a moment, his hands trembled as he reached for the cup. "Thanks," he murmured before retreating to a corner table. Rick relaxed, his posture less defensive. Cindy, however, looked irritated. "You're too soft, Ethan," she muttered under her breath. "People like that don't deserve freebies." Ethan didn't respond directly, but his jaw tightened. Elon could see the tension in his shoulders, the effort it took to maintain his composure. It was a defining moment, a testament to Ethan's belief in treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their circumstances. Elon knew then that Ethan was someone who deserved more than the confines of Brewhaven. But how could he approach him without breaking his cover? And what would be the best way to uplift someone who had given so much to others? As the day wore on, Elon formulated a plan. His experiment was no longer just about observing human behavior. It was about changing it, one act of kindness at a time. Ethan was the perfect starting point, a symbol of everything Elon hoped to see more of in the world. And as he left the cafe that evening, his mind buzzing with ideas, Elon realized this was no longer just an experiment. It was a mission. The turning point. Elon returned to Brewhaven the next morning with a sense of purpose. He had spent the night reflecting on the interactions he had observed and the stories he had heard, particularly Ethan's. The young barista, with his dreams deferred and his heart of gold, had stirred something within Elon, a reminder of his own struggles before he found success. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. It was an opportunity to create a tangible change. The cafe was quieter than usual, a lull between the morning and lunch rush. Elon stepped inside, his disguise intact, and ordered a cappuccino from Ethan, who greeted him with his usual warmth. "Good to see you again," Ethan said as he prepared the drink. "Starting to feel like a regular here." Elon smiled. "I guess I am. There's something special about this place." "Special?" Cindy muttered from her spot near the counter. "If you call dealing with entitled customers and cleaning up after them special, sure." Ethan ignored her comment and handed Elon his drink. "Enjoy," he said sincerely. Elon took his seat by the window but didn't open his notebook right away. Instead, he watched Ethan move around the cafe, his every action purposeful and kind. When a young couple struggled to find a table, Ethan quickly wiped one down for them, offering a cheerful, "Here you go." When an elderly woman accidentally spilled her drink, Ethan was there with napkins and a fresh cup before she could even ask. Cindy, on the other hand, continued to radiate disinterest. She barely acknowledged customers, often responding to their questions with curt, one-word answers. It was a stark contrast that Elon couldn't ignore. The morning wore on, and Elon decided it was time to push his experiment further. He approached the counter again, this time catching Ethan during a brief moment of downtime. "Ethan," Elon began, "can I ask you something?" "Sure," Ethan said, leaning slightly on the counter. "What keeps you going?" Elon asked, his tone earnest. "You're always so positive, even when things seem tough." Ethan's smile faded slightly, replaced by a thoughtful expression. "I guess I just believe that every person deserves a little kindness. You never know what someone's going through, you know. And maybe, just maybe, a kind word or gesture can make a difference." Elon nodded, his respect for Ethan growing. "But doesn't it get exhausting?" Ethan laughed softly. "Sometimes, but I remind myself that it's not about me. It's about them. And honestly, it feels good to know I might have brightened someone's day, even just a little." Elon felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't expected such profound wisdom from someone so young. Before he could respond, a voice interrupted them. "Hey, Ethan," a man called out as he entered the café. He was dressed in a mechanic's uniform, his face smeared with grease. "How's it going, buddy?" Ethan's face lit up. "Hey, Tom. Good to see you. Usual." "Yeah, and make it quick." "I'm on break," Tom replied, slapping a $5 bill on the counter. As Ethan prepared the drink, Elon observed the interaction closely. Tom, a regular customer, seemed genuinely fond of Ethan. Their exchange was casual but warm, a testament to the connections Ethan had built. When Tom received his drink, he paused and turned to Elon. "You new around here?" "Sort of," Elon replied, his voice subdued. "Well, you picked the right place," Tom said, gesturing toward Ethan. "This guy, best barista in town, makes you feel like you're the only customer that matters." Ethan blushed slightly. "You're too kind, Tom." Tom laughed. "No, I'm just honest. Keep it up, kid." With that, he left the cafe, leaving behind an air of positivity. Elon couldn't help but smile. Tom's words confirmed what he already knew. Ethan was exceptional. But there was still one more test he wanted to conduct, one that would challenge not only Ethan, but also the other patrons of Brewhaven. The test unfolds. Later that afternoon, Elon deliberately created a small commotion. As he walked toward the counter to ask for a refill, he accidentally dropped his crumpled bills onto the floor. The money scattered, drawing the attention of several customers and employees. Cindy was the first to react. "You, really?" she said, rolling her eyes. "Can't even keep track of your own cash." Ethan, however, was already by Elon's side, helping him gather the bills. "Here you go," he said, handing the money back with a reassuring smile. "No harm done." Elon thanked him, but the test wasn't over. He hesitated, feigning embarrassment, and said, "Actually, I think I'm short for another coffee. Would it be okay if I pay the rest later?" Cindy snorted. "Seriously, this isn't a charity." Before Elon could respond, Ethan spoke up. "Don't worry about it," he said. "I'll cover it." Cindy threw her hands in the air. "Of course you will." Soft as ever. Ethan ignored her and prepared the coffee. When he handed it to Elon, he added, "Pay me back when you can, okay?" Elon nodded, genuinely touched. Ethan's willingness to help, even at his own expense, was a rare quality. But it wasn't just Ethan who surprised him. A few patrons, witnessing the exchange, approached Elon discreetly. "Here," a young woman said, pressing a $5 bill into his hand. "It's not much, but I hope it helps." "Same here," an older man added, handing over a few coins. "We've all been there." Elon accepted their gestures with quiet gratitude, his heart swelling with a mix of emotions. The test had revealed not only Ethan's character, but also the latent kindness in others. It was a reminder that beneath the surface, humanity was capable of profound generosity, a seed of change. As the day came to an end, Elon knew it was time to reveal his plan. But first, he needed to ensure Ethan would trust him. Approaching the counter one last time, he handed Ethan a slip of paper with a phone number on it. "What's this?" Ethan asked, puzzled. "A chance," Elon replied cryptically. "Call this number tomorrow. Trust me." Ethan looked at the paper, then back at Elon. "What's this about?" "You'll see," Elon said with a smile. "Just promise me you'll call." Ethan hesitated, but eventually nodded. "All right. I will." As Elon left Brewhaven that evening, he felt a sense of anticipation. The pieces were falling into place, and the next step would change Ethan's life forever. What Ethan didn't yet realize was that his kindness, his empathy, and his unwavering belief in treating others with dignity had caught the attention of someone who had the power to make his dreams a reality. For Elon, the experiment was no longer just a study of human behavior. It was a call to action. The call that changed everything. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. The slip of paper with the mysterious number sat on his bedside table, its presence almost palpable in the quiet of his small apartment. His mind raced with questions. Who was the strange man who frequented the café, dressed like someone down on their luck, but carrying himself with quiet confidence? And what could the number possibly lead to? By the time the first rays of sunlight filtered through his window, Ethan decided he couldn't wait any longer. Clutching the piece of paper, he dialed the number with trembling hands. His heart pounded as the phone rang once, twice, 3 times. "Tesla, how may I direct your call?" A professional voice answered. Ethan froze. Tesla. His mind reeled. Hi. I was given this number and told to call. I'm not sure who I should speak to. May I have your name? The receptionist asked. Ethan Carter. There was a pause, followed by the sound of keys clicking on a keyboard. Mr. Carter, you're expected. Please hold. Expected? Ethan's grip on the phone tightened as he was transferred. The line clicked, and then a deep, familiar voice came through. "Ethan," the voice said warmly. "It's me, Elon." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Wait, Elon? Elon Musk? That Elon?" The man chuckled. "The very same." Surprise. Ethan stumbled to sit down on the edge of his bed, his legs suddenly weak. "But why? How? I don't understand." "I told you I saw something in you," Elon said, his tone genuine. "Your kindness, your resilience, they're rare qualities. I wanted to see how you handled yourself under pressure, and you exceeded my expectations. I'd like to invite you to Tesla for an interview." Ethan's breath caught. An interview? For what? "For a position in our automotive engineering department," Elon replied. "I heard about your background, and I believe your skills and mindset could be a valuable addition to the team." Ethan was speechless. This had to be a dream. He pinched his arm, wincing at the sharp pain. No, it was real. "But I'm just a barista," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not anymore," Elon said firmly. "You're someone with potential, someone who deserves a shot. So, what do you say?" Ethan swallowed hard. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Elon said with a smile in his voice. "Say yes, and let's change your life." The preparation. Ethan hung up the phone, his mind spinning. He had an interview at Tesla, the company that had revolutionized the automotive industry, led by one of the most brilliant minds of the century. It felt surreal, but the slip of paper in his hand was proof that it was happening. He called his mother first, his voice trembling with excitement as he told her the news. She cried tears of joy, her pride in him evident through the phone. His father, a retired mechanic, was equally thrilled. "You're finally getting your chance, son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Ethan spent the rest of the day preparing. He dusted off his old resume, updating it with whatever small accomplishments he could think of. He borrowed a suit from a friend, ensuring he looked the part, and when the day of the interview arrived, he stood in front of the mirror, staring at his reflection. "You can do this," he whispered to himself. The interview. Tesla's headquarters was nothing like Ethan had ever seen. The sleek, futuristic building seemed to hum with innovation, its glass walls reflecting the ambition of those who worked inside. Ethan walked through the revolving doors, his borrowed suit feeling slightly too tight, his palms damp with nerves. A receptionist greeted him warmly and guided him to a waiting area. As he sat, he couldn't help but marvel at the people bustling around him. Engineers discussing complex designs, executives in sharp suits, and even a robot gliding past with a tray of documents. "Ethan Carter," the voice called. Ethan looked up to see a woman with a clipboard. She smiled and gestured for him to follow her. They walked through a series of corridors, each more impressive than the last, until they reached a large conference room. Inside, a panel of interviewers waited, their expressions professional but not unkind. The questions came quickly, technical inquiries about automotive systems, problem-solving scenarios, and even questions about his experience at the café. Ethan answered as best he could, drawing on his education and his time helping his father repair cars in their garage. When asked about his work at Brewhaven, he spoke passionately about the importance of empathy and human connection. The panel listened intently, nodding occasionally. By the time the interview ended, Ethan felt drained but cautiously optimistic. He thanked the interviewers and was escorted out of the building, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The call. 2 days later, Ethan received a call from an unfamiliar number. His heart raced as he answered. "Ethan," Elon's voice said. "Congratulations. You're hired." Ethan's knees buckled, and he sank into a chair. I don't know what to say." "Say you're ready," Elon said with a laugh. "Your first day is next Monday. Welcome to the team." Ethan hung up, his hands shaking. He had done it. He was going to work at Tesla. The aftermath. Ethan's life transformed overnight. His new role at Tesla challenged him in ways he hadn't anticipated, but he thrived. He poured himself into the work, his passion reignited. With his first paycheck, he moved his family to a better neighborhood and paid off his parents' debts. At the café, word of Ethan's success spread quickly. Customers who had witnessed his kindness were thrilled for him, while Cindy's reaction was less enthusiastic. Her dismissive attitude had come back to haunt her, leading to her transfer to another branch. Elon, meanwhile, kept in touch with Ethan, offering mentorship and support. He saw in Ethan not just an employee, but a reminder of why he had embarked on his experiment in the first place, to find the hidden potential in people and to create opportunities for those who deserve them. Ethan never forgot where he came from. He visited Brewhaven often, sharing his story with the staff and customers who had supported him. And every time he saw someone struggling, he offered a helping hand, just as others had done for him. For Ethan, the journey from barista to engineer was more than a career change. It was a testament to the power of kindness, resilience, and the belief that everyone, no matter their circumstances, deserves a chance to shine.